After being ruthlessly rejected by Felix for the 99th time, the system told me that I was just a vicious supporting female character, and that the male lead Felix would never like me. It urged me to be strong and continue to lick my wounds. Fed up with the truth, I angrily beat up the system for not telling me earlier. To hell with the male lead. His gentle and innocent brother is 100 times more attractive than him. However, ever since I married the blind brother of the male lead, Felix's gaze towards me as his sister-in-law became increasingly unsettling. On our wedding night, I confronted Felix in front of our new room with his brother, reminding him affectionately, "Felix, this is your last chance from me. If you speak up, I won't go through with this marriage." Felix furrowed his thick black eyebrows like he could crush a mosquito, his star-like sparkling black eyes glaring down at me as he warned through gritted teeth, "Laura, what exactly do you want to do?" Pointing to the scarlet gown I was wearing, I smiled sarcastically and said, "Marry your brother, of course." Ignoring my playful tone, Felix, who had always protected his brother like a little sibling, became furious. He pushed me against the wall, gripping my chin forcefully, his handsome face glaring down at me as he warned, "Laura, this marriage is not something you can just decide to go through with or not. Now that you've married my brother, you better act like a proper wife. If I catch you doing anything to disrespect my brother, I won't let it slide." I wasn't even listening to Felix's words. All my attention was on the corner of the staircase, where I caught a glimpse of the female lead, Victoria. My objective had already been achieved. From Victoria's perspective, it seemed like Felix and I were not in a confrontational threat, but more like a pair of flirtatious individuals. The words I had just spoken were all dry lines dictated by the system, fulfilling the duties of a vicious supporting female character. To prevent being beaten up again, the system begged me tearfully, suggesting that I could just read lines from a script and go through the storyline. It even tried to entice me by saying that once I completed the mission, Felix's brother would be mine. Thinking about the pure and gentle Ryan, Felix's brother, who always wore white and seemed to be untouched by worldly dust, I reluctantly agreed to the system's deal. At that moment, with my chin still stinging from Felix's anger, I patted his hand and reminded him to ease up. "Have you even been listening to what I said?" Felix's eyes glinted like knives as he harshly warned, "Sister-in-law." As the scene played out, I swatted away his hand on my chin, exclaiming, "You're hurting me, little brother." Felix looked dumbfounded as I challenged him. "You dare to hit me? What if I do?" I scoffed, shooing him away. "Do you want to pick a fight now?" Waving him off dismissively, I added, "Go away, and don't interfere with my marriage to your brother." As I tried to push open the bedroom door, Felix rushed forward, attempting to grab my hand. He couldn't believe as he sternly inquired, "Laura, what did you just call me? Say it again if you dare." Swiftly dodging his hand, I coolly replied, "Little brother, the sister-in-law gave you a chance, but you missed it yourself." Ignoring Felix's baffled expression, I pushed past him into the room, locking the door behind me. In the room, Ryan, in a white wedding suit, sat nervously on the edge of the bed. Handsome and elegant, his facial features were soft and refined in contrast to Felix's sharp and wild edges. He had a high nose bridge, lips neither thin nor full, radiating a dewy glow. Being blind from birth, Ryan had never seen with his eyes. Hearing my presence, he turned his head slightly and asked casually, "Is it the housekeeper?" "No, it's me, your new wife." Upon seeing Ryan, my tone would always inadvertently soften. Unable to bear any impatience towards his pure and flawless demeanor, Ryan's fair cheeks blushed slightly, and he smiled gently. He had always had a liking for me since childhood, but had kept this secret admiration carefully hidden, especially when I only had eyes for Felix. It wasn't until the day of my 99th failed proposal to Felix that he finally revealed a fraction of his previously hidden feelings, by accepting the engagement ring from me after Felix had embarrassed me. Later, when we were alone, Ryan hesitantly offered to return the ring to me. Unsure of his own expression at the time, he casually mentioned, "I know you didn't genuinely propose to me. There's no one else now, so take the ring back." I promise not to tell anyone. Taking the ring from him, Ryan's evident disappointment tugged at my heart. With a light chuckle, I disregarded the system's bombardment in my mind, and grasping Ryan's elegant hand tightly, I slid the ring onto his finger, fitting perfectly. I had made up my mind about this marriage. What? Ryan was momentarily stunned, feeling the weight of the ring on his finger. He could hardly believe it and whispered in disbelief, "Do you really want to marry me?" "Yes," I replied. Ryan's surprise turned into a smile of joy, but soon, the happiness waned, and he murmured softly, "But I am just a blind man." Yet, he didn't take off the ring, and thus, Ryan and I went on to complete the wedding ceremony. As one of the missions for this malicious supporting female character was to marry into the financially troubled Felix's family, and use my family's influence to coerce the male lead into submission. I saw marrying Ryan as a better alternative to being destined as Felix's wicked ex-wife. Whether it's a man, the system should not be concerned about these minor details. To prevent me from escaping, the system trembled in fear, unable to speak. Walking slowly towards the marriage bed, I pushed Ryan gently onto the bed. Unprepared, Ryan grabbed onto the bedsheets tightly, his knuckles turning white, and tremblingly asked, "Laura, what are you doing?" Breathing softly against his ear, I reassured, "Don't be afraid. Just close your eyes." Ryan hoarsely complied, and I kissed him, his eyelashes quivering with anticipation. The next morning, waking up in Ryan's bed, I found him dressed and sitting at the edge of the bed, gently holding and rubbing my hand, his lips curved in a smile filled with affection. Not being able to see, Ryan had excellent hearing, and sensing my awake state through the change in my breathing, he quickly released my hand, pulling back his large hand, placing it neatly on his thigh. Observing the slight exposure of his chest muscles under his shirt, I teasingly remarked, "Ryan, I didn't expect you to be so skillful." His fair face turned red instantly. Wanting to tease this lovely man a bit more, the system frantically urged me to move the plot along. Rising from the bed, I kissed Ryan's lips lightly and told him to get some more sleep before leaving the room and heading towards the kitchen. As I entered the kitchen, Victoria was passing by with a stack of dishes. We made eye contact, and she appeared surprised to see me in the greasy kitchen. Victoria, Felix, Ryan, and I had grown up together from childhood. We attended the same school, starting from elementary to university, with me, Felix, and Victoria sharing a long history together. When I was young, my family had the meagerest conditions among the three of us. However, over time, Victoria's family went bankrupt, and Felix's family teetered on the edge of bankruptcy. Victoria, having always despised Felix's arrogant and sinister behavior, especially now, due to her family's financial situation, she had to be brought to his house as a servant to repay debts. In our childhood, I chased after Felix, who was always chasing after Victoria, while Victoria focused on her studies. Ryan, who couldn't attend school, sat quietly by himself, silently listening to our antics, trying and failing to join in and be acknowledged. Even with Felix's sibling adoration-centered character, he sometimes would get so engrossed in chasing after Victoria that he would forget about his own brother. In the end, it was always me who noticed Ryan standing there, lost and clueless, and brought him back home, often scolding Felix. Remembering the past, Victoria was once a cold, proud, and aloof flower, but now seeing her dressed as a maid, looking exhausted with disheveled hair and covered in sweat, I couldn't help but sigh to the system. Thank goodness, I'm just a malicious supporting character. The female lead is really in a tough spot. The system replied, "There's no choice. It's now popular to forcefully love the cold, tough, aloof flower with a ruthless, domineering CEO." Enough with that. The plot belonging to the malicious supporting character begins. Suddenly, the kitchen maid brought over a large basin of heavily greasy and dirty dishes, slamming them down in front of Victoria, and then smirked at me as if seeking praise. Victoria almost instinctively looked in my direction, her eyebrows furrowing, a deep sense of restraint and concealed anger in her eyes. With the sudden increase in workload, even I would be furious. Under the system's urging, I stepped forward and kicked the basin of dishes, pointing at the kitchen maid and coldly said, "Do your work yourself. If I catch you slacking off again, your wages will be deducted in full." The kitchen maid was stunned, unable to react. Victoria, on the other hand, opened her eyes wide in surprise, looking at me intently. I smugly said to the system in my mind, "How was that? Was I malicious enough?" "Not enough. Fine, let's ramp it up." I put on a face as if someone owed me millions, called the steward of the Felix's family over, and pointed at the bewildered kitchen maid saying, "Fire her, right now, immediately. I don't want to see such lazy and cunning people in this house ever again." The steward was startled by my maliciousness and hesitated for a moment, originally wanting to advise me, but seeing my ruthless expression, he decided to obey his young lady's command. He summoned the bodyguards and forcefully threw the bewildered kitchen maid out of the villa. Done with that, I turned around to see Victoria, who gave me a complex look before turning around and walking away with the cleaned dishes. I raised an eyebrow, thinking that the plot had progressed smoothly. Reminding the head chef to make the lunch heavily flavored, I was about to go find Ryan. But when I turned around, I noticed Felix standing there, looking at me with a similarly complex expression, before walking away without a word. I smirked, thinking to myself that the male and female leads indeed had a similar demeanor, like a couple, even in their expressions. At lunchtime, sitting at the long dining table, Ryan and I sat at one end while Felix sat at the other end, a distance of 3 meters between us. Victoria, dressed as a maid, stood next to Felix, wearing a grim expression, ready to serve him at his command. Before the dishes were fully served, Felix asked about the arrival of our family's funds in a roundabout way. I looked at Ryan's handsome face, not wanting to engage with Felix. Annoyed, Felix raised his voice. Laura, did you hear me? I looked at him, reminded him sourly, call me sister-in-law. Right, darling. I turned to Ryan with a soft smile, even though he couldn't see me. Unexpectedly, my endearing term caused both Felix and Victoria to inhale sharply, staring at me as if I were a monster. A slight blush appeared on Ryan's ear as he nodded his head slightly, facing Felix. Felix, Laura and I are already married. She's your sister-in-law now, so please be polite to her. His voice was calm but firm, a rare seriousness from Felix's brotherly concern. Ryan, before Felix could speak to his brother, I affectionately took Ryan's arm and leaned against his shoulder, softly saying, darling, you're so good. His arm visibly tensed, with defined muscles, giving him a lean yet powerful physique. Though blind, Ryan had a well-structured body due to a professional trainer guiding his exercise routine for his overall health and fitness. In short, he looked slim in clothes and well-built without them. Felix, on the other hand, rarely got such treatment from his brother, and his face darkened. But instead of directing his anger at Ryan, he focused it on me, glaring intensely. The servants brought out the spicy seafood soup I requested, and Felix immediately questioned me about it, criticizing me for not considering his brother's inability to eat spicy food. I apologized and asked for the kitchen to prepare some mild dishes. Ryan turned down my offer, saying, it's okay. Facing me, he smiled and gently asked, Laura, do you really like spicy food? I nodded, remembering he couldn't see, and agreed. Surprised by this, Felix was taken aback and angry that his brother was being treated so well by me, even changing his taste preferences to accommodate me. In reality, I didn't mind what I ate. Felix preferred bland flavors, so I intentionally made the spicy seafood soup. But if it caused discomfort to Ryan, I would feel guilty. My apologies. I'll ask the kitchen to prepare some mild dishes, I said. Ryan insisted, it's all right. I remember, from now on, I'll enjoy whatever you like. But Felix, don't you prefer mild flavors? With our words echoing the same sentiment, we both looked at each other, regretting our lingering affection for Felix's unkind demeanor. Seeing Felix shocked by his brother's sudden care for me, I was struck by a realization. Perhaps I had fallen for the wrong person under the influence of the malicious character setting. Immersed in this awakening, I didn't notice Ryan's dimming expression when I said Felix didn't like spicy food. As Victoria brought out the freshly cooked dishes, Felix didn't touch a single one, probably still annoyed. Prompted by the system to maintain the malicious character, I coldly told Victoria, you can have all the remaining dishes. Victoria looked at me in surprise, then sat down, picked up the chopsticks, and brought the bowl of spicy seafood soup to her, enjoying it bite by bite. I could even see the excitement in her eyes. It turns out she likes to eat too. I thought to myself with the system. The system didn't reply to me. It seemed to have crashed. I shrugged indifferently, watching Ryan elegantly finishing the dish I served him and pouring him another bowl of soup. He turned his face slightly, smiled at me, and my heart skipped a beat as his beauty struck me. How can you be so good-looking? I looked at his almost perfect face, my gaze falling on his eyes without any brilliance, feeling a sense of regret, as if something was missing, a pity that it couldn't be seen. My voice was low. He might have heard it, or he might not have. His soup-drinking motion hesitated for a moment, then gently placed the bowl down, reached out to grab a tissue from the table. But Victoria suddenly moved the tissue box position, leaving it empty. Victoria, who was enthusiastically enjoying the food, pushed the tissue box in front of him and said gently, Ryan, if you need it, you can call me. Thank you. Ryan's response was polite yet distant. His hand hesitated, but eventually pulled out a tissue, wiped his mouth and hands. However, after this action, he sat still in his place, frowning slightly and thinking to himself, alone in his thoughts. I know what he is thinking. When he was a child, his familiar room furnishings were moved, which caused Ryan to embarrass himself in front of the new family teacher. And since then, he specially disliked anyone moving objects in the house. Felix knew his brother's quirk. Everything in the house remained the same as before. If anything needed to be moved, it would be informed in advance and required Ryan's approval before doing so. That tissue box seemed like a small object, but over the years, it had always been placed next to Ryan's exclusive seat. The sudden movement made him feel uncomfortable. I may not have seen it, but I guess, at that moment he must have felt embarrassed, especially in front of me. In my mind, I asked the system, can Ryan's eyes be healed? Originally, I thought this type of congenital blindness was incurable, but thinking about the system in my mind, I felt that there might be some miracles happening in this world. It took a long time for the system to reply to me. It wasn't that it crashed, but it was updating. Due to the awakening of the characters, the main god has now updated the mission, upgrading the romance novel to a female lead career advancement story, and your mission is to help the female lead rebuild her family business and lead a successful life. But the evil character setting must not fail. If you complete the mission, the system can grant you one wish. Alright, enough said. System, I understand. I responded excitedly in my mind. Victoria. I knocked on the table facing Victoria, with a bad attitude and a sarcastic look. Victoria lifted her head from the spicy seafood soup, her eyes still looking innocent. I said, I have too much money to spend, so think of a project for me to make money. If the project is good, then you are hired. After that, I grabbed Ryan, who had already finished eating, and left. Soon, Felix heard the news and came storming over to me, dragging me to a corner and blocking me, questioning, Laura, what do you mean? Are you playing me? What do you want from me? I hadn't taken off my headphones. The voice from the game mixed in. I couldn't hear what Felix said clearly. Felix slapped off my headphones, and I exclaimed, my $20,000 headphones. I wanted to pick them up, but his big hand pressed on my shoulder. I couldn't move. I could only raise my head and sneer at him. If you have a project that can make me money, I can invest in you. Felix's eyes narrowed dangerously, reminding me, don't forget why you married my brother. Saying that, he looked both disgusted and hurt. My brother is being taken over by you, a woman like this, and you want to give the money that should belong to our family to Victoria. Do you believe I'll make my brother divorce you right away? Dare you? I shouted sternly, my face completely darkened, emanating a strong aura, making Felix stunned for a moment. I pushed away his control and forcefully kicked his shin, making him scream in pain, with deep dark eyes almost on the verge of spewing fire. Laura, what trick are you playing? Playing both me and my brother in circles. Is this your revenge? Felix questioned. I couldn't understand what he was saying. Who did I want to seek revenge on? Where did I take revenge on you? I curiously asked. You? Felix took a deep breath, looked around, saw no one around, then whispered, because I rejected your proposal, you hold a grudge against me, wanting to annoy me by marrying my brother, hoping I'll be jealous of you. Now seeing that I'm not jealous, you want to force me to ask you because of that money, isn't it? I raised an eyebrow. Yes, indeed. Felix put on a disgusted look that confirmed what he thought when I started dreaming about it. So I spoke first. But that was before. He paused, unable to say the words you're dreaming out loud, then remembered something and smirked. Ha. Who doesn't know you pursued me for 15 years? Do you think I'd believe it? I threw away those 15 years. The smirk on Felix's face finally couldn't hold. I curiously watched his shocked yet melancholic expression, finding it quite amusing. Arrogant people, they just refuse to acknowledge that someone might not like them. Want money? Sure, whoever does the better project with Victoria will win my heart. Felix's eyes darkened, staring at me with an ominous gaze. I huffed, turned and walked away. Unexpectedly, as I just turned the corner, Ryan was already standing there for some time. I felt a sudden guilt in my heart. Ryan, I was about to explain to him, afraid he might misunderstand, but before the words could come out, Ryan suddenly grabbed my wrist and pulled me into his cold embrace from behind, hugging me tightly. He seemed a bit flustered as he said, no need to explain. You don't have to explain to me. There's nothing between me and Felix, really. Don't misunderstand. Please don't say it. I don't want to hear it. Can we just remain like this, okay? He didn't want to know anything about the emotional entanglements between me and Felix, nor did he care about the true purpose of this marriage. He just wanted things to stay as they were, me as his wife, and him as my husband, nothing more. This humble request pierced my heart, nodding repeatedly to indicate that I wouldn't say anything more. He rested his head on my shoulder, facing my cheek, his lips trembling slightly. I heard him whisper softly in my ear, I like you. I really like you, Laura. Do you like me too, please? Who could say no to that? I was about to reply with a yes. Laura. Victoria came over, holding 3 thick project plan books. Ryan heard her shout and quickly let go of my hand, stepping back. If looks could kill, Victoria would have been skewered by me without having to resort to my evil female antagonist setting. That alone was villainous enough. Victoria paused for a moment, her ambiguous gaze shifting between Ryan and me, suddenly giving a mischievous smile, pushing the 3 books into my arms. You'll be satisfied with this plan, so read it carefully. Her tone was commanding. Damn, how did she suddenly become so assertive? I furrowed my brows, watching Victoria walk away in her apron-made outfit, feeling the weight of the dictionary-sized books in my arms. Was she trying to blind me with all this reading material? A hand appeared in front of me. Ryan said, give it to me. Without waiting for me to refuse, he had already taken the thick plan book single-handedly and tucked it under his arm, taking the cane in his other hand, walking slowly, but steadily towards the room. Somehow, I felt his back looked desolate. I quickened my pace, linking my arm with his. Ryan paused his steps, giving a slight smile, his pace slower and more stable, leading me along. In less than 2 days, Felix also threw a thick stack of project plans at me, imitating Victoria's tone, commanding, "Please read it carefully, slowly." Seeing this childish scene, even the system couldn't help but comment, "The male and female leads are truly a match." Ryan had a hobby, sculpting with clay. Give him a lump of clay, and he could play with it all day long. I discovered this when I was a child, but as I grew up, I rarely saw him hold a lump of clay for sculpting. By the time I entered junior high school, a mysterious clay sculpting master suddenly emerged in the art world, with exquisite craftsmanship that impressed many senior master craftsmen. One piece of his Buddha clay sculpture sold for the highest price at an auction. Because this master had never shown his face, all auction proceedings were handled by agents, so no one had expected that this mysterious master was blind. This master of clay sculpting was Ryan. It was an open secret in their family. Everyone knew it, but no one said it. No one wanted Ryan to be disturbed or hurt by the outside world. The fact that they could still hold on now was largely due to Ryan. His works were auctioned off one by one, and all the money earned was given to Felix. However, at this moment, Ryan's clay studio was already occupied by me, 2/3 of it. The large desk was full of plans made by Victoria and Felix, scattered all over the table and even on the floor, with many sheets flying around. He had no complaints about it and silently moved his tools to the corner, still focusing on playing with clay. Occasionally, he would get up, wash his hands clean, and bring me a drink. Ryan's bedroom, studio, and bathroom were all designed to accommodate people with disabilities. In his familiar environment, his actions were no different from those of a normal person. Even his white cane was put aside against the wall. But because of my presence, the scattered books on the floor blocked his way. "Come over here," I teasingly shouted. My little prank made Ryan feel helpless. He stood in front of the books blocking his path, shook his head at me, and gave me a faint smile. This expression, like a parent facing a mischievous child at home, was one of tolerance and indulgence. After reading the plans for 3 days, I felt like my eyes were about to go blind. Seeing him hesitating to come over, I put down my work and jumped in front of him. Ryan smiled and handed me a drink, gently saying, "Take a break. You've been working hard these past few days." I didn't say anything, took the drink to the window, drank it in one gulp, took a deep breath, and relaxed. When I turned around, I saw Ryan standing behind me, slightly tilting his head to listen to my voice. That kind of focus, that kind of vulnerability. Setting down the cup, I tiptoed and patted his neatly arranged hair, feeling its silky texture, and I found it hard to let go, forming a mess. "Ryan, why are you so easy to bully? I'm causing chaos and you don't even resist," I thought. Ryan's ears turned slightly red. He reached out his hand, and his strong arms held my waist, lifting me up, so I didn't have to stand on tiptoes. My view suddenly elevated, making it easy for me to mess with his hair. With a hint of redness on his handsome face, he said softly, "Letting you bully. Are you flirting with me, Ryan? Can you really be bullied?" Can I bully you however I want? After all, you're the one who put yourself in this situation. I thought to myself, that requires a Princess Carrie. I heard Ryan chuckle lightly by my ear, and then suddenly he lifted me horizontally, surprising me. "Ryan, you've learned bad things," I said. He laughed a few times, seeming to have achieved what he wanted. I pointed to the side of the bed and said, "Go left." Ryan obediently walked to the left with me in his arms. I let him go right, and he followed to the right, allowing me to fool around until he lost his sense of direction. "Where are we now?" Ryan, who had lost his sense of direction, asked in confusion. I smiled and leaned against his ear, saying softly, "By the bed." His arms holding me tightened noticeably for a moment, and the room suddenly quieted down. Neither of us spoke. He just lowered his head and listened to my breathing. Is it my heart beating? No, it's Ryan's. Like thunder, intense and rapid. I leaned against him and could hear it clearly. "Can I?" he asked softly, as his voice vibrated against my ear. I lifted my head to look at his face, perfect as if carved by God's hands, and now, a hint of almost crumbling emotion appeared on his perfect face. This was how Ryan was. He had never erupted even after enduring to the extreme. Suddenly, a mischievous idea arose in me, and I wanted to see what he looked like when he erupted. So, I pulled his collar, forced him to lean towards me, and kissed him on his lips. In an instant, my vision spun. Ryan half-kneeled beside me, his strong arms propping me up by the neck, restraining me completely. I caught sight of the veins bulging on his neck, his whole body trembling slightly, as if reason and impulse were warring within him. I suddenly realized that he never lost his way. He was just indulging me, because this was his territory. "Can I really?" he asked once again, the hot breath on my face almost scorching me. His cautiousness made me feel a sour discomfort. "Ryan, you idiot," I scolded and kissed him again. When I came to my senses, it was already pitch black outside. Ryan was sitting on the edge of the bed as if in a trance. He called out to me, but I didn't respond. He gently pushed me, but I ignored him, making the empty room unsettling. Just as I was being mocked by the system, an apology sounded above my head. When I opened my eyes, Ryan was lying behind me, reaching out tentatively to hug me. Seeing that I didn't refuse, he embraced me fully. "I'm sorry. I was wrong. Please don't be angry, okay?" His voice was low and hoarse, looking quite at a loss. Confused, I asked, "Sorry for what?" With a hint of tears in his voice, it seemed like if I didn't get out of bed soon, he would cry. Sighing deeply, I turned around and hugged him tightly around his thin waist, feeling utterly helpless. "Ryan, and before, it wasn't intentional. I just can't control myself when I touch you. I'm sorry for hurting you." Helpless, I tried to reassure him, "Understand. Just try controlling yourself next time." Seeing that I wasn't really angry, Ryan let out a sigh of relief. His furrowed brows relaxed, holding me tightly and affectionately nuzzling my cheek. "Would you invest in Felix's project?" he suddenly asked. The love between brothers. For the sake of his little brother, the big brother deployed the charm. "Don't fall for it, host," the system joked. I confidently replied, "I plan to invest 500 million. 251 million will be allocated to Felix, and 249 million to Victoria." The system commented, "So Ryan is worth 200 million in your heart. Should I just trash talk you?" I threatened. "How can you say that?" I retorted. "Ryan is my little sweetheart, but this fool seems to be clueless." After learning that my dowry was mostly given to Victoria, Grandpa summoned me to his study, questioning my sincerity in helping their family. Honestly, yes, I was. If not for Ryan, I wouldn't want to give Felix a penny of the 500 million. Surprisingly, he was stunned for a full 5 seconds upon hearing my straightforward response. "Grandpa," I sincerely suggested to him, "why don't you let Felix marry Victoria into our family?" The system warned cautiously, "Laura, what are you up to? We're not following love drama script now." "Shut up," I rebuked inwardly. The system couldn't understand my intention. This was called resource restructuring. Victoria's family deals with dry food, although they've gone bankrupt, but they perfectly complement Felix's high-end hotel business. If Felix and Victoria's projects collaborate, I believe my 500 million investment can double. Hopeful but desperate, the system commented, "I asked you to encourage the female lead to start a business, not for you to start the business yourself." I was full of self-assurance. Grandpa's eyes lit up. We exchanged a glance, feeling the brilliance of the idea. As I exited the study, there stood Ryan by the door. I rushed over excitedly. "Darling, hug me." Ryan seemed a bit slow to react, but he managed to catch me as I pounced towards him. "Why are you here?" I asked curiously. Ryan smiled lightly, lifted my legs off his waist, and gently placed me on the ground. "Grandpa asked me to come over for a visit." I told him to go inside, assured him I would wait for him, and we would return together. Ryan nodded and the butler assisted him as he walked forward. Suddenly, he stopped in his tracks, turned to me and said, "Thank you." I was puzzled. Thanks for what? Ryan realized his words were somewhat ambiguous and self-absorbed before hurrying back into the study in a slightly flustered manner. Grandpa was deeply moved by Victoria's acceptance of Felix's proposal. Felix was touched not by Victoria's 249 million, but by Victoria herself. His hidden affections could finally be revealed through other reasons. I felt Felix could easily rank in the top 10 of the most annoying and insincere characters. Arrogant, cunning, insincere, and evasive. Any one of these traits would be suffocating. If Victoria could fall for him, the sun would indeed rise in the west. So, upon learning of Victoria's acceptance of Felix's proposal, I went to her and expressed my taunt. "Oh, despite saying I don't like it and having no interest in Felix, your body is quite honest." Victoria looked at me strangely. "Don't you get tired of speaking like that?" I pridefully lifted my chin. "It's none of your business. I'm only in it for his money. I'm not interested in Felix at all. Our marriage is purely contractual. You don't have to explain to me. I'm not listening." "What? Wait, Victoria, you said you don't like Felix." I was stunned. "Aren't the male and female leads supposed to like each other?" Victoria smirked, leaned in close to me and said in my ear, "I'll give you what you want, Laura." A spicy seafood hot pot aroma emanated from Victoria, and I found myself slightly intoxicated. "Are you going to open a hot pot restaurant?" I asked curiously. Victoria stepped back, her eyes revealing a mix of coolness and mockery. "You're right, cutie. System, such a strong queen's aura. Truly my leading lady." As it turned out, having the aura of the male and female leads really makes a difference. With Victoria and Felix together, their careers took off. I simply stayed home and collected money. And to top it off, I had Ryan, a handsome man, by my side. Life couldn't have been more lush. Before I knew it, the mission was completed. The female lead had successfully ascended the global rich list, and the host's mission was perfectly accomplished. I received rewards. Dreams came true. Host, make a wish. Today I specifically booked an appointment with a top eye specialist clinic for Ryan to get his eyes checked, to see if there is hope for him to regain his sight. When the system's completion sound rang in my mind, the doctor sadly shook his head at me. I sat next to Ryan, able to see his calm expression. It seemed like he already knew the result. Even before coming, he had said it was impossible for his eyes to be healed. I insisted on coming anyway. He reluctantly followed me to the hospital. The system's reward came just in time. Walking out of the hospital, supporting Ryan, I leaned close to his ear and said firmly, "I made a wish to the gods. They granted it. Tomorrow your eyes will be able to see." Ryan's lips turned up slightly. "Okay, you're really serious." He knew I was determined. He nodded. "Okay, it's true." He hoped more than anyone that it would be true. "I really want to see what you look like." Ryan gave a wry smile. "But it is impossible." I was about to tell him he would definitely see. Before the words left my mouth, Ryan said, "Felix and Victoria are getting a divorce. What does it have to do with us? They were only in a contractual marriage." With Felix's annoying personality, it was a surprise that Victoria could stand him in the first place. But over these 2 years, Felix's feelings for Victoria seemed to have changed a bit. But still, it didn't concern me at all that they were getting a divorce. "Laura, would you divorce me?" "Why should I divorce you?" Ryan reiterated. "Felix, he's getting a divorce. So what?" Ryan took a deep breath, releasing my hand. "These 2 years have been tough on you, taking care of me. All the doctors said my eyes couldn't regain sight. So I can't hold you so selfishly any longer. Laura, these 2 years have been the happiest for me, really." He actually smiled. "You can be with Felix. You liked him from the start." His voice was strained. The more Ryan said this, the more uncomfortable I felt. He clearly loved me. We had been married for 2 years, and he actually believed that Felix was the one I liked. "Ryan," I called out to him sharply. He knew I was angry, but he didn't reach out to hold my hand. The driver pulled up the car. "Ryan, if you don't hold my hand now, you will regret it," I threatened fiercely. Ryan tightly pursed his lips, turning his face away. I was really furious. In addition to anger, my heart ached terribly. My vision blurred with tears, not being able to see Ryan's tightly clenched, almost white hand, and his shoulder trembling with effort to restrain himself. I opened the car door and got in with a bang, and slammed the door. "Drive," I commanded. The driver hesitated a bit. "Ryan, don't mind him," I shouted. "Just drive." The driver, startled by my outburst, turned on the car, but the speed was slow, like a snail. Even the household driver knew how important Ryan was to me. How could that idiot not know? "Stop," as if he had known I would call for a stop. Before the words fell, the car halted, but I didn't expect that an accident would happen in that moment. Ryan was gone. Felix is missing too. Victoria ran into the house shouting. It had been 2 hours since I realized Ryan was missing. In those 2 hours, Victoria and I had mobilized all our friends and relatives to search for him, but to no avail. Ryan couldn't have disappeared for no reason. Something must have happened to him. I was about to call the police immediately, but as I was about to leave, Victoria rushed in, saying Felix was missing too. Almost at the same time, both Victoria's and my phones rang. "Your husbands are with us. If you want them safe, just listen and obey. Do as we say." My head buzzed for a moment. I looked at Victoria and turned my phone towards her. 2 identical messages appeared before our eyes. Felix and Ryan had been kidnapped. I couldn't believe it. Victoria was the newly crowned rich woman on the rich list. It wasn't uncommon for kidnappers to demand ransom for her husband, but for me, a low-profile second-generation rich kid, how did I end up in the kidnapper's sights? Ryan had a limited range of activities since childhood, almost no social experience. When faced suddenly with ruthless kidnappers, he had no means to resist. He must be really scared. Perhaps he was in some corner waiting for me to bring him back home. Regret, guilt, panic, and other emotions churned inside me, piercing my body like a dull knife, making it hard to breathe. It was all my fault. If I hadn't gotten angry with him and left him on the roadside, the kidnappers wouldn't have had a chance to approach him. The phone's message alert rang again. "Give you 2 hours. Bring 200 million ransom to the pier. Listen and obey, and you can see your husband. But if you dare call the police, we'll tear the ticket. Victoria had received the same message. She quickly looked at me. Don't panic. I'll report to the police. They will help us. To prevent me from acting impulsively, she reached out to stop me, but I couldn't think of anything else. I just wanted to see how Ryan was doing, to ensure his safety. With an outburst of energy, I moved Victoria away. Don't touch me, I shouted at her. Seeing the butler and staff being attracted over, someone would help her up, I ran off in a sprint. I rushed to the bank, utilizing all my connections to urgently withdraw 30 million in cash from major banks. Driving a pickup truck filled with cash, I arrived at the pier within the scheduled time. Just as I got out of the car, a dark shadow loomed behind me. A strange smell entered my nostrils. Before I could react, my consciousness blurred. When I woke up, I realized I was lying in a huge abandoned warehouse. A faint light streamed in through the crack in the door, dispersing the darkness in front of me. The warehouse was piled with wooden crates, and on the floor were scattered mannequins covered in thick dust. At first glance, I thought they were dead bodies, and I was taken aback. Thankfully, they were all mannequins. I wasn't tied up or anything, but my phone was missing. Jumping down from the crate I was lying on, I searched frantically inside. Ryan, Ryan, I called out his name loudly. The warehouse reverberated with my voice. After a minute of shouting, there was no response. Thinking there couldn't be a second person here, a surprised voice called out from deep in the warehouse. Laura, Ryan, is that you? Excited, I ran towards the voice, accidentally tripping. Ignoring the pain, I quickly got up and continued walking further in. Passing through a high wall stacked with wooden crates, a blinding light suddenly shone on my face. I raised my hand to shield my eyes, and the kidnapper's laughter echoed. Felix, your wife seems to care about you a lot. She brought the money quickly. It was then that I realized there were two burly men wearing black masks standing on a steel pipe walkway, looking down at me. Under the walkway was a chair, clothes dirty and torn, hair unkempt. Felix sat tied to the chair, with a cloth over his eyes. On hearing my voice, Felix became more certain that the person was me. Laura, did you come alone? Are you stupid? He angrily questioned. I didn't want to deal with him. I just wanted to know how Ryan was doing. Was he also in a state like Felix? And seeing Felix's bruised face, it was clear he had suffered some mistreatment. I couldn't imagine having that kind of injury on Ryan. I feared I might lose control and retaliate against the kidnappers. After all, the system still owes me a reward of a dream come true. Thinking about the system, I calmed down and gained some confidence. Where is Ryan? I asked the kidnappers on the stairs. I'm Ryan's wife. I brought the money to ransom him. You know it's not easy to get cash from the bank. I did everything I could to temporarily withdraw 20 million. I promise, as long as I can confirm my husband is safe, I'll go back and get the rest of the money for you immediately. But you have to give me time. 200 million in cash. Even a truck can't carry it all. The bank won't be able to process that quickly. The two upstairs realized they had mistaken me for someone else. You're not Felix's wife, the leader asked. I pointed to the chair where Felix kept insulting me. Do I look like his wife with his attitude? Just so you know, I'm his sister-in-law, but his life and death have nothing to do with me. I didn't say those words out loud, but I was indeed afraid they would get angry and harm Felix. No matter what, he is Ryan's own brother. The kidnappers suddenly understood. Oh, you're the wife of that blind man. I didn't expect a blind man to have someone who loves him. Indeed, money can make people do whatever they want. Mocking me was fine, but mocking Ryan was something I couldn't tolerate. But for now, I had to suppress my anger. These two kidnappers were quite reasonable. They agreed to take me to see Ryan. They even smiled and said, we only want money, not lives. As long as you cooperate, both you and your husband will be safe. Thank you, I said, holding back my anger and resentment towards them. As the kidnappers were about to take me to see Ryan, Felix became anxious. Laura, are you just going to leave like this? Don't you care about me? I responded, your wife will take care of you. Didn't you hear the two big brothers? They just want money and don't want to harm you. Just wait a little longer. My wife won't come. Wait, Victoria only divorced him. He has no wife now. Laura, you're my sister-in-law. You can't ignore me. If something happens to me, my brother won't forgive you. Felix shouted behind me. Since the limelight had shifted to Victoria, he was just an ordinary brother now. The kidnappers turned to look at me. I turned to look at Felix. Felix gritted his teeth. Sister-in-law, I was wrong before. I will listen to you in the future. I told the two kidnappers, my brother doesn't really understand. If he has offended you before, please don't judge him. He is worth something. The kidnappers finally showed a genuine smile. They took me to a separate warehouse on the second floor. The heavy iron door opened. There was no light inside. Felix would have been terrified in this endless darkness. But Ryan was sitting quietly in the corner, carving calmly with a carving knife and a piece of clay. Perhaps because of his eye disability, the two kidnappers were certain he couldn't escape, and everything remained with him. As for communication tools, because he couldn't see, he couldn't operate them even if he had one. I should have bought him a phone earlier and taught him how to use it. Maybe then, when the kidnappers approached him, he could have called for help immediately. Now, saying all this was meaningless. Seeing Ryan appearing intact in front of me, my anxious heart finally relaxed. The noise at the door caught his attention. The two kidnappers glanced at me, realizing that someone was with me, and they immediately tried to close the door. I took a quick step and rushed in. "What are you going to do?" the younger kidnapper angrily shouted as he chased after me. He was fast and familiar with the environment, and he quickly caught my shoulder. I yelled, "Ryan, I'm here. Don't be afraid." The clay that Ryan was sculpting fell to the ground as he suddenly stood up. While I struggled with the younger kidnapper, Ryan suddenly appeared behind us and punched the younger kidnapper on the head. I felt a warm hand on my waist, guiding me backward. I fell into familiar arms, but before I could relish the moment, he helped me up and pushed me behind him. "Don't touch her." He stood protectively in front of me, warning coldly, shielding me with his body. The leader of the kidnappers also rushed in, first helping up the groaning younger one, then angrily approaching Ryan and me. The warehouse was completely deserted, and the electrical system inside had long since failed, so only the two kidnappers' flashlights provided any light. I pulled Ryan towards a dark corner, trying to escape with him. The door was right in front of us, and I was relieved. Suddenly, a cold wind blew from above, and the bright flashlight made me tear up, instinctively covering my eyes. The leader of the kidnappers struck down with his stick, and although I anticipated intense pain, it didn't come. I felt a warm and familiar scent enveloping me, Ryan's scent. He held me tightly to his chest, and I felt the man behind me trembling violently, letting out a muted groan of pain. With a bang, the iron door was closed heavily. The younger kidnapper shouted threateningly from outside, "Damn it. Since you are so disobedient, let's die together. Let's find that Victoria. Now we have 3 people to ransom." "Big brother, you're still wise." The two of them talked as they walked away, their footsteps gradually fading. I felt a drop of warm liquid on my neck, trying to touch it, but Ryan held me even tighter, and I couldn't move. I anxiously asked, "Ryan, are you okay?" "I'm fine." He sounded a bit strained, as if he was holding something in. I dared not move, trying to ask, "Are you injured? Did they hurt you?" I wiped the blood from his mouth and chin with my hand. Luckily, it wasn't flowing continuously. I tried to touch his face and body. There were no visible wounds on his face. When I touched his back lightly, his body trembled intensely for a moment. Ryan lightly laughed. "It's nothing." "How can this be nothing? You've spit blood. You must have internal injuries," I said, my voice filled with pain. Ryan seemed flustered. "Don't cry. Your tears make me feel worse." Although he spoke seriously, the words sounded somewhat ambiguous. I forced a smile, tears still lingering in my eyes, holding him gently, leaning against his chest. "Ryan, being able to be with you. I'm not afraid of death anymore." Ryan hugged me tightly in return. "Don't say such silly things. I won't let you die. You came to find me. That's already enough for me. They just want money. I'll go out later to negotiate with them. Have them send you out. Tell them it's to collect money. But once you're out, don't come back. Go find the police, okay?" "What about you?" I asked. He continued to stroke my hair. "Don't worry about me. If the money isn't enough, just save Felix first." I intentionally pushed Ryan away. Ryan was momentarily stunned, though I couldn't see his expression. I guessed he was making that familiar patient look. "Ryan, do you really not understand what I'm saying?" I shouted in frustration. "The person I like is you, and the person I love is only you. It's you." "Ryan, if I hear you say those things again, about not caring about your own life, about pushing me to others, we'll divorce immediately. We'll never see each other again. You'll never see me again." Who wouldn't say such heart-wrenching words? I'm not a wicked female lead for nothing. Ryan was clearly surprised by my sudden outburst. I waited 28 seconds, and then he reached out a hand to hold mine, saying awkwardly, "I'm sorry. I didn't know you liked me. I always thought you were with me out of pity. That's why I said things that made you unhappy." I tried to pull my hand away. "Stop pretending to be pitiful. I absolutely won't be softened." Ryan leaned in closer as I stood and he knelt, holding me around the waist. His head rested on my belly, rubbing against it like a spoiled pet. A tingling sensation reaching deep into my heart, almost breaking my defenses. I pushed his head with my hand, but he leaned in again, shyly saying, "Darling, don't be angry." The title 6 held no resistance for me, because usually he never called me that, no matter how much I teased him. Only when he was on the bed and I pushed him too far, he would quickly call out, covering my mouth and silencing me. Darling, I love you. I know you like me so much. I am very happy, very happy. Let's not divorce, and don't leave me after we grow old, okay? Ryan's voice was actually very pleasant, especially when he knelt in front of me, looking up with red eyes, begging me. His deep voice made me want to drown in it. The system couldn't stand it any longer. Enough already. Ignoring the system's screams, I lifted Ryan's face, bent down, and gently kissed his forehead as he looked up at me. Ryan, if there really is a God, I want it to restore your eyes right now, so you can see how much I love you. I told the system in my heart. I want Ryan's eyes to see. System, received. During the restoration, a countdown began. 5, 4, 3. When the countdown reached 1, the iron door was suddenly violently kicked open. Bright light flooded in. A worried Victoria with police officers in uniform rushed in. The expression on Ryan, who was kneeling in front of me, suddenly changed. In the brightness, his dim eyes were gradually clearing away the haze, becoming bright. Laura, Ryan couldn't believe it. I seem to see what you look like, and it's different from what I imagined. More beautiful, more gentle. More and more figures appeared in his eyes, and he saw a strange woman anxiously talking to the men in uniform next to her. Then, the beautiful woman he had always imagined, took his hand. So, there really is a God in this world, right? As the beautiful woman, I looked at Ryan's increasingly moist eyes and asked with a smile. He hadn't reacted yet, just nodded blankly. We were saved. Victoria found the police, located the warehouse on the dock through my phone signal. Subsequently, the police quickly mobilized, and at the moment when the two kidnappers were still basking in their success, they stormed in directly. Felix was also rescued. When Ryan threw away his blind cane and walked steadily and accurately step by step towards him, people were stunned. Victoria said, "This might be a medical miracle." Even the doctors at the hospital said, "We have never seen anything like this happen before. Congenital blindness is usually caused by genetic defects, and we have not yet conquered genetic diseases." I said, "Let's believe in miracles." Ryan was beaten by the kidnappers and was spitting blood. We were all worried he had internal injuries. However, upon examination, it was found that there were no traces of injury on his body. That's when I remembered to call the system. System, did you repair Ryan's injuries? However, the electronic voice that always appeared at inappropriate times suddenly disappeared. System, I called out in my mind again. No response. It had left. The invisible shackles that had always been hanging over me disappeared at some point as well. Now I am no longer the villainous supporting female character in the book. I am just Laura, wealthy, beautiful, and happily married to husband Ryan. Oh, I almost forgot. I now also have a little brother Felix, who actively and flatteringly calls me sister-in-law, and a wealthy heiress friend Victoria, who says she wants to earn money to support me.